Hi,
Hello.
it is time for Live with Gotham Quilts again. Hi, Allison. How are
I am
you?
doing great. How are you, Yvette?
Pretty good, except as soon as I hit live, my internet started being unstable.
Oh no.
So if you see any glitches, let me know. It was going like wah 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 wah.
Isn't that how it goes? As
Um,
soon as you want to do something, internet goes.
yeah, so like I pay for really good internet, but of course, the one moment of the week that I'm trying to stream is when it decides to, act up.
Of course.
All right, fingers
Yes.
crossed, and it behaves.
Yeah, I tell you what, I was kind of grooving
um,
out at the end. I feel like I should do jazz hands at the end of that intro.
so Andrea used to always dance while the music was going. So we used to always do this in person in the store, right? Like we'd be sitting next to each other, or I'd be behind the camera and she'd be in front of the camera. And literally every single week, even though it's the same song, it wasn't always this song. It used to be a more like rock song, like a Bernina kind of song. But she hated that song. But she still danced to it every time. She was like, every time. Anyway, not what we're supposed to be talking about. We are supposed to be talking about our next retreat.
I'm very
Hooray!
excited.
So, for anyone who missed the announcement originally, 2 weeks ago, feels like been an eternity already. Um, when we announced that Allison has acquired Gotham Quilts, we also announced the next virtual retreat. We used to do virtual retreats. We tried to do about 4 a year, and we were always uh, trying to strategically schedule them because there are certain times a year that like no one's going to show up for a weekend of sewing, right? Like if you booked it like the weekend before
Yep.
Christmas, who's going to come to that, right? So we would at the beginning of the year we'd look at a calendar, pull up all the holidays, all the other things we'd committed to, whether we were vending at a show or whatever it was, like whatever was on the calendar, right? We'd start at the beginning of the year and we'd try to put one in every couple of months. And then when I started talking to Allison about acquiring Gotham Quilts, that was one of the first things we talked about is like, what weekend are you available, right? So we ended up picking a weekend in the middle of September. It's September 19th through the 21st. So it's 2 weeks after Labor Day. So hopefully, like all the back to school craziness has calmed down, and like people have a minute to breathe and do something just for themselves after wrangling the kids and all that kind of stuff, right? And this time around, the topic is going to be English paper piecing, which we never did a retreat on English paper piecing yet, although it was always on the list because it's one of my favorite techniques. And Allison, you only recently started doing EPP, is that
Fairly
right?
recently, I'm definitely not an expert, but I am very much in love.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an easy thing to pick up and not have to you don't have to do a deep dive into EPP to enjoy it because it's so tangible. And like most people start with a hexagon. Uh, I said English paper piecing the long term, right? So EPP is short for English paper piecing. Um, this is the usual thing you start with is a hexagon, 6-sided hexagon, right? And this is a 1 inch, which is probably the most common size. Quick tip, if you're looking at paper pieces, which is the name for this template, if you see the number of whatever size, it'll say 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 3/4 of an inch. It's measuring a straight side. It's not measuring across the shape, which is very confusing,
Mm-hmm.
I think. But the reason they do this is so that you can figure out whether two will fit together. The width of this across does not really matter. What matters is whether these two edges are the same length, right? So when you're buying them, if you're buying a 1 inch hexagon, it'll fit with let me grab something else that's an inch. I have here, these are elongated hexagons. This is a 1 inch elongated hexagon. So that means that every side is 1 inch on this. And if I wanted to sew these two together, they would fit. Or if I put it over here, they would fit, right? So if you're trying to figure out what size to buy and you see a number, the number refers to the side. Asterisk, if you're buying from Paper Pieces, which is this company, they're the industry leader for the templates for English paper piecing, but there are other manufacturers. So and there's also like some designers are making their own papers and stuff. So just be sure you check if they're following the same convention, because it's possible some other vendor is measuring across or up and down or who knows what, diagonal, depending on the shape. That was a tangent I didn't mean to go
It's
on,
important though. It's really important to know.
So 1-inch hexagon is the one you usually start with. And what I have found happens is that one person gets into English paper piecing and starts like carrying it around with them. And then you're showing everybody else their project. And then all of a sudden, everyone is doing English paper piecing, which is how I got the bug. I used to work in a quilt store like, God, 15, 20 years ago. And like one of the employees started doing this teeny hexagon, like they were like half-inch, so like
oh my goodness,
a third of the size of this, right? She started carrying around her teeny weeny, and she was like asking people to give her teeny scraps because she was fussy cutting into this like half an inch thick shape. So she was walking around the store being like, do you have tiny scraps that have something interesting inside? And of course you're going to be like, why are you asking me that? So she'd whip out her, and everyone was like, before you know it, everyone is making a hexagon project. Every single person who worked there started a hexagon project.
Yeah. And teeny things are just so much cuter, right?
Yeah. And, it's funny. It's like, if it's small, it's deceptively faster, right? Because, okay, so let's back up. What do you do with this, right? You're going to baste a piece of fabric onto it. And I have handy dandy some examples. If I can open the Ziploc bag. So here is a basted, and this is thread basted. You see the thread here? So on the back, it's just like the edge extra selvage of the fabric, and on the front, it looks like a hexagon of fabric. Why would you do this? Might be your next question. And the reason is, if you tried to sew a bunch of hexagons like this to each other, like on a sewing machine, if you cut these and then tried to sew them together, like how would you do that, right? You'd be trying to sew, like it's not going to work. And that's the main reason we do English paper piecing, is so that we can make these funny shapes that if you were trying to do it, I guess you could do like hand piecing, but realistically, how many of us do hand piecing, like traditional hand piecing where you draw the lines and you sew through the lines? So this is obviously hand piecing also, but it's like got a template, so it feels like it's different. It's like a very old technique, don't get me wrong, but the idea is you're going to baste your fabric onto your templates, and then once it's basted, you can attach your templates to attach your basted pieces to each other, and then make a quilt top. And some of them can get quite complicated. I'm going to show you a real jazzy
one. That one is lovely.
So this is a cog. They call these cogs anytime, because it's like most quilts are block based, right? But if you're making a piece that's a circle, it would be weird to call this a block. So the term is cog in that case. This is a cog from the La Pasacalia quilt. I have no idea if I said that right. But it's a quilt. Well, it's actually a book that came out 15 years ago. And it has all these crazy shapes. And this size that I'm doing is double the size from the original. So you can imagine like these little triangles in the original are like this big. And my fingers don't want to do that kind of work. So I made the bigger size. So yeah, you can get like, try to think about piecing this on your sewing machine.
It would be impossible. There's no way.
Right, exactly. So this is why English paper piecing exists, is so you can do crazy stuff like this, but like it's fun instead of being ripping your hair out crazy. I
would agree.
Do you want to show the one you're working on?
Yeah, so mine is I would say a little simpler than the one that we just saw from you. Do we want to go to the overhead? We set up an overhead camera so we can get a view of this. This particular one I really love. It's called Big Blooms is the pattern. And it's basically a quilt of these big, beautiful flowers. Now, this is the size that they say it's 1.5 inch pieces. So this hexie in the middle here is 1.5 inches. The jewel, which is kind of this triangle-y, squished looking thing, is 1.5 inches. And then the petals are just 2 jewels put together.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess it's 1.5 inches on the shorter side of the jewel, right? Because that longer side.
This is way more than 1.5 inches. So yep, it's measured on the short one, which is the tricky bit with jewels. Yvette, as you were saying before, depending on your manufacturer, they could measure something else. Some measure jewels by the long side, some measure it by the short. But Paper
Yeah.
Pieces is the one I like. They have a really nice feeling in their paper. It's not too stiff and it's not too floppy. They're the, you know, the leading expert for a reason. And so
For
the
sure.
hardest part of this particular project was picking out which fabrics go with which fabrics. The theme I was going with is to have a solid in the center of the flower and then some of this beautiful fabric around the edge, just to provide a little consistency to it. But really, it's super fun. Uh, Imagine trying to piece this on a sewing machine. But yeah,
No. No, thank you.
exactly. So with paper pieces,
How do they go together after you finish those flowers? What is there a piece that goes in between them?
yeah. So when you finish the flowers, I'm not quite there yet, but they will kind of they'll kind of orient themselves together. There are hexes and then triangles or diamonds that go in here.
Oh,
So you can see how a
yeah,
diamond would go here and a hexagon would fit where, oh, I can move this over here.
Cool.
So a diamond in the middle here and then a hexagon over here. And
you said this pattern was called Big Blooms?
This pattern is called Big Blooms. Yeah, it's by an Australian pattern designer. And we might actually be a little bit backwards here, but you can see.
It's definitely backwards, but we get it.
The picture, right? So here's the finished quilt. It's a lovely written pattern. And it also does come with.
You use light for the setting pieces you can see in the picture.
Yep.
That's nice.
Yep, exactly.
So this is a pattern that when Allison and I were designing the retreat, she mentioned this pattern to me as like the pattern she's working on right now for EPP, and I had literally never heard of it before. But we've added it in as an add-on item for if you do register for the retreat and you want to make this quilt. We have added it as an option, so you could get the pattern, you could get the acrylic templates that she's showing. So if you're going to do some fussy cutting being cutting the fabric in a certain orientation so that you can make secondary designs, like for example every piece in this ridiculous thing that I made. I always like to point out, you see these little weird eggs? Look, they go in different directions.
Oh yes.
This was a mistake.
It was?
I made them all the same, right? They were all like this, and they were supposed to stick out this way, but I neglected to understand that the direction of it was upside down. So this is the closest I could get because I was not rebasting all of these dumb egg things. So they ended up like this.
What a happy little
They were supposed to all go.
It looks fabulous.
Yeah, I think it was fine. But it just goes to show that if you fussy cut and you don't pay attention, you end up with a slightly incorrect idea. But the reason you made those templates, or like if you were doing hexagons, and by the way, we're including a selection of different papers inside your package when you register for the retreat. And also one of these 1-inch acrylic hexagon templates so that you can fussy cut for the 1-inch hexagon. And I guess maybe I got ahead of myself. I didn't mention the book yet. So almost always for retreats, we pick one book to work off of, so that everyone has the same physical reference to work off of, right? And this is backwards too. Sorry.
It says English paper piecing.
Should I try to swap that?
Invert the under
Okay, never mind. Did you say it's under settings?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Go to video.
Well, while you're looking at that, oh, there you go. Nice.
Oh, now I look weird.
You just flipped.
It's because you're used to looking at yourself like a mirror image, not this is what I actually look like, and I like it. Okay, this is the book. It's called Flossie Tea Cake's Guide to English Paper Piecing. Flossie Tea Cake's real name is Florence something.
Knapp, I think.
Knapp. But her handle on Instagram used to be Flossie Tea Cakes, and that was like her brand. So when she wrote this book in 2018 or whatever year it was, that's the name that went in the title of the book. But if you look at her Instagram now, she now goes by her actual name, Florence Knapp. She's written a novel, and the novel is under her real name and not her, quilting nickname, Flossie Tea Cakes. But basically, she lost her mind for English paper piecing at some point, and she wrote essentially like a historical reference book for English paper piecing that has stuff about like how it came about and like 1800s quilt samples and features of current contemporary. I'm trying to find you one of the. Oh, it's here. Oh, sorry, because it's backwards now. I don't know where to put them. Oh, wait a minute. I just realized I'm supposed to be sharing the screen, not showing you my physical book. See, I prepared, but then I forgot it.
Oh.
So this is the inside of the book. This pages that are inside the book. This is the table of contents. And then this is an example of the kind of historical content that is in the book. She features a bunch of different makers, a bunch of different EPP quilts made all the way back to, I think this one is from, it's in the Illinois State Museum is what it says. Albert Small. Albert Small is one of the artists that she features in the book who has made, I don't know, thousands or hundreds of quilts, maybe dozens of quilts, something like that. And then this one, you may recognize this one. This one is colloquially called the Lucy Boston block. It uses the elongated hexagon that I just showed you before. And this quilt is from the early 1900s. So you can see that there's all kinds of reference materials in the book, sort of like a crash course. And here's where it comes from, and here's all the things you can do with it. And then it also has how-to stuff, although I don't have screenshots of those parts of the book. Do I have another way to show that? Hold on. No, I don't think I have a place to show that. So we picked this book because the how-to part of the book is very good. I can just hold that up, I guess.
I would add to that the how-to section is probably the best I've ever seen. It's really in depth, and it goes into some of the detail that other guides just don't dig into. So you get a whole wealth of information, not only on the history and the beauty of English paper piecing, but how to do it in the real day. So if I were guessing, would you say it's split about 50-50 between reference and how to?
I think it might be a little more reference than how to.
Okay.
But it's also good that it's like, it doesn't, I don't think it detracts from the book because the reference part is really, really interesting. And then the how-to part focuses on the really tangible, helpful bits and not, there isn't a lot of like extraneous stuff. So for example, here's a whole spread on fussy cutting. So
yeah,
the idea of you make a cut and then depending on how you orient the piece that you've cut, you can make all these secondary designs, right? She could have explained this in a more verbose way, and instead she uses a very visual way, so that it's really easy to, you take a look at it and you inherently just understand what it means. I think her instructions are really clear and really helpful. And then at the end of the book is there aren't that many patterns in this book. So like usually when you think of a quilt book, it's usually a pattern book, right? Like the whole book is instructions. In this book, there's all that historical context and inspirational content. And then there's a how-to doing English paper piecing. And then there's a section on the rosettes, which are this idea that I mentioned the word cog, she calls it rosette for hers. And there's, I think it's 4 of them.
I think so.
So this is one of her original patterns and the instructions for how to make it. In the package that's coming with your retreat package, I said package twice, you will have all the papers needed to make one of these rosettes, however you say this P word that
we're not even going to try.
I think it's a location. I think it's named for oh, look, she's got a pronunciation guide. Pronounced Pie-Greve.
Pie-Greve. Okay.
If you say so. This word. So she named all of her rosettes after locations. So we're including all the papers to make one of these rosettes or cogs, if you want to call it that. And also one of these, the Belilla rosette. This one doesn't have a pronunciation guide, so I'm hoping I said that right.
It sounds good to me.
And then this is the opus project in the book. It's called the Ripple Effect quilt, Oops, I'm putting in the wrong place. And this inner rosette or cog or whatever the right word is 23 inches across, which like in my screen here is too big to put my hands together for you to see. So we did not include this one in the package because I don't think most people are going to make this, but should you want to make this, it is an add-on item. And I'm going to flip my camera back around so that I can put things in the correct part of my screen without going
to normal, huh?
Oh, and then my face looks normal. Yeah. So I'm going to put the QR code on the screen. This QR code is actually going to take you to a page on the Gotham Quilts website that has not only the registration for the retreat, but has all the optional add-on items. So everyone gets with the same package. The package has the book, has a sample of EPP papers that are a mix between the most common shapes that in general apply for EPP and also those 2 cogs that come from the book directly. So you can make one of each of those cogs. You don't have to make any of these things, obviously, but that's what everyone's getting, those papers. And then one of these templates so that you can fussy cut on a hexagon. And then we're going to throw in some extra goodies, right?
Some fun stuff, yeah.
Yeah, we haven't figured out what those are yet, so don't ask us, but there's always little extra things in every retreat box. And the retreat starts at 4 p.m. on Friday the 19th of September and goes until about 3 p.m. on the Sunday. But we do not mean that you need to be online for 2 days straight. We understand that people will come and go. You know, you got to feed your family. You got to, I don't know, take a shower, maybe.
Maybe.
Not required. It's virtual. We won't know. But we always say, like, this is the number one question we get is like, do I have to be online the whole time? And the answer is absolutely not. We assume people will come and go, but one of us hosts, and in this case, there's going to be 3 hosts. It's Allison, me, and Andrea, who's not on this video, but you know who she is. And I've been thinking about this weekend as like the perfect chance for our customers to get to know you, Allison, right? Because we have lots of time to chat and like do show and tell, and we usually do some giveaways. It's a big hangout weekend.
And it'll be lots of fun. I know.
Yeah. Oh. Sorry, I think I glitched there. I was going to ask you if you ever went to a virtual retreat before.
I have not, which is why I'm so excited for you and Andrew to kind of introduce me to virtual retreats. I am a huge fan of in-person retreats and actually very excited. Just booked my next in-person retreat here in Minnesota for the fall. But really, my hope is to learn a little bit about what you guys did to make these so special. You know, we'll bring some of the fun stuff that you do for those in-person ones. You know, but the good news is, depending on where your retreat was, you won't have to, you know, shower in a shared shower with, you know, or walk to a cabin or any of the stuff that bad food. If you've had a retreat with bad food, none of that. This will just be all the good stuff.
The closest thing that I've ever been to a like in-person retreat was when I went to like a camp kind of a thing. And there were bugs in the cabin. It's like, and somebody snored. It was like I didn't sleep very good that those couple of days, you know.
See, no snoring at the virtual retreat unless your family happens to snore, and then we can't.
Unless you're used to it already.
Yes, exactly.
My friend says that she can't sleep unless her husband is snoring next to her because it's been 20 years of sleeping next to him snoring, and if she sleeps somewhere quiet she can't sleep. Right.
Oh, that's too funny. No, I'm very lucky in that I promise you sleeping is my superpower. I could sleep whenever, wherever, whatever else is going on.
Yeah. Andrea has that superpower too, and I like hated her for it when we first met because I'm an insomniac and I've always been an insomniac, and she just like, all right, I'm going to bed now, asleep.
Yep.
Is Ken a good sleeper or is Ken an insomniac?
Ken is not a good sleeper at all.
I have a theory that in every couple, one person is an excellent sleeper and the other person is a terrible sleeper.
Okay. So if you were watching, I guess either live or on the replay, put it in the comments if you think there's weight to Yvette's theory here, that one person is a good sleeper and one person is a terrible sleeper in any relationship.
Andrea's husband, Justin, can't sleep. Andrea sleeps like a dead person. Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to see what people say about that.
It's my
But yeah,
theory.
Ken, you got the thumbs up from Ken that yes, he believes you.
Believes theory true. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Not what we're supposed to be talking about. Okay. I'm trying to think what are some questions people ask us about the retreat.
You know, one question I do see, I think I cannot, maybe Margot, it's very far away and my eyes are a little
Her comment
squinty.
says this book is amazing.
This book is amazing. So what if somebody had already purchased this book, but they want to join the retreat?
Great question. And since this isn't a brand new book, it's kind of somewhat likely that somebody might already own it. So we have two options when you sign up for the retreat. You can either pick the book or you can pick to receive a mystery fat quarter bundle where the fabrics are going to be inspired by the rosette that's on the cover. This is honestly like a good 10% of the reason we picked this book is because this cover is so pretty. Like,
It's gorgeous.
like neither one of us had seen this book in person before, and then we kept looking at it and was like, okay, we got to order this. Like, that cover's so pretty. And then it turned out the inside was excellent, and we picked it. We checked, was it 3 books before we
At least 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
So sometimes when we, in like historically the other retreats, sometimes they started with a book, like we already had a book, or like a book came out and we saw it at a quilt show and we were like, oh my god, this would make a great retreat. Sometimes the retreat starts with a concept, like when we decided to do the running stitch as a theme, we couldn't find a book on the running stitch because it's like too simple. Like there's no such thing as a book on running stitch, right? So yeah, sometimes we start with the idea, sometimes we start with a book. In this case, we said we never did one on EPP. Let's see if we can find a good book for EPP. And yeah, this is so pretty. Like, look at this. So if you already own the book, you can choose mystery bundle when you in the selection, when you scan the QR code here, or you go to the link that's in the description of the video at the bottom. The link will take you to a list of all the stuff for the retreat. Actually, now that I think about it, I think the link takes you to the retreat, and this QR code takes you to the list of stuff. Yeah, so you can pick book or mystery bundle. And if you want both, which is a question we get a lot, is like, I want the book and the mystery bundle, just pick book from the options and then add a mystery bundle in the add-on options.
Yep. And I tell you what, we're working on that mystery bundle now. We've got a big pile of beautiful fabric, and now we just have to whittle it down. Isn't that the way it goes? You just find too much good fabric.
Yeah. So when we used to do Stump Andrea, that's what Andrea almost always did, is she would pick way more than she needed, and then she would whittle it down to the best options. I think that's a great technique.
Yes. And I love Kathleen's comment. She's holding her grandbaby. So we absolutely forgive typos, especially when you're holding a grandbaby. But I think English paper piecing, to Kathleen's point, is one of those things that maybe is a little scary or intimidating at first. But really, it's one of those things, once you get to know it, it'll be really catchy. I promise you, it's not as hard as you think it is.
No, it's really not. And you can make it as hard as you want, right? Like, in this cog that I showed where I did all this fussy cutting, like I made this harder because I felt like it. Basically, it doesn't have to be this hard, right? I also realized
it can be this simple,
right? So you didn't
just
do
pick the fabrics that you like.
Right? Yeah, exactly. This is an example of if you just sew a bunch of hexagons together. This was, I think these are 3/4-inch hexagons if I remember correctly, and this was the project. When I said that everyone caught the bug at that store that I used to work at, this is what I started in 2010. And I quickly learned that my favorite part is basting and not joining. So like, look at this. This is how many I have.
So you're all ready to go.
When we evacuated for Hurricane Sandy, which was, God, like 10 years ago now, this is all I brought with me is these hexagons, and I was like determined to sew them together. But this is as far as I got. It's like, this is not very big.
Well, it's also one of those projects that's really easy to take on the go. So if you do need to evacuate or wait at the doctor's office, or any of those things where you're just kind of sitting, we can also think of watching your grandchildren play soccer. Maybe that's a more exciting one.
Yeah.
Or bring it with you.
Like if you have a spouse that's like insisting you watch whatever sport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. These are so addictive, the little pieces. Like I just like stacking them and like putting them together and looking at them, you know?
Yep.
And then like sewing them together is optional. Yeah. Like
Yes, right. That's the fun part, is looking at them, petting them, arranging them,
Picking the fabric. I keep dropping
picking the
everything. Sorry,
fabric,
disappearing because I keep dropping all of these little teeny guys.
picking them up off the floor, all of those very fun things.
Um, what else should we cover? Oh wait, we have a comment. Oh, Daisy and Grace EPP templates. I'm not familiar with that one, Claire, but I'm sure that would work. So Claire in the comments mentioned that she has something called Daisy and Grace EPP templates, which is not something I'm familiar with, but it brings up a good point that when we do these retreats, there is like a curriculum sort of, right? We're working off a book. We pre-record videos and upload them into this retreat space in the Gotham Quilts community website. And you are given access to that retreat space about the Monday before the retreat starts. So like not quite a week, although if we're ready early, we'll give you access early. But basically we go through the book and we record videos for all the stuff that we think you would want to have a video resource for. Because while the book instructions are very good, they're, static photos. A video is always easier to follow. So we pre-record all those videos and we let you into the group a couple of days early. Some people are going to want to pre-watch all those videos, maybe read the whole book cover to cover, pre-cut some fabric. And like, we've had people in the past who made like an entire top over the weekend because they planned it all out. They were prepared and they were just like a machine all weekend, right? And then we have some people who show up and don't even do the same thing we're all doing, right? Like we're doing EPP this time around. Like, I would not be surprised if somebody shows up and is sewing something on the sewing machine instead because she's just come because she wants to hang out, basically. So wherever you fall in that spectrum, if you're the kind of super planner, like, overachiever style, oh my God. Something.
Did they all fall?
Yeah. So this is my collection of EPP papers from like who knows how many projects, and it jumped off the shelf. What was I saying? Oh, okay. Anywhere you fall in that spectrum. If you are type A, you want to get as much done, or you don't even like EPP and you just want to come hang out with us, or anywhere in the middle. Like Claire said she had this other EPP project that she already has. You come and work on that instead. I'm going to be working on all the slightly started things.
That's a good call.
It would be nice if I could get some of them done, but not likely.
Maybe we could take predictions at the beginning of the retreat. How far will Yvette get by 3 p.m. on Sunday?
Right. It's like, will she have even sewn one thing? Is really the everyone knows. Yeah. Usually in the
retreat, take a survey.
I end up finding something to do, like, some grunt work thing or working on accounting or, it's like,
all that stuff. Christy does ask, what hours will the virtual retreat be?
Great question. So we start on Friday afternoon at 4:00 Eastern, and that night we end at 10. And then we start again at 10 in the morning on Saturday. We go to 10 at night on Saturday. And then we start again Sunday morning at 10, and we go to about 3. The very last thing we do is a show and tell of what people have done over the weekend. And that show and tell can sometimes go longer. So, we say about 3, but we might go longer than that. And we often have people leave early on Sunday because Sunday is like a errandy kind of a day. So sometimes people will pop in at like 10 and be like, can I do my show and tell now? Because I have to leave for church or whatever it is. So yeah, we're very flexible. This is like the opposite of Quilt Police or like boot camp, or, no one's going to yell at you. No one's going to make you do anything. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, no pressure. Kathy mentioned that she was in the car on a cross-country trip. That's a great time to do English paper piecing.
If you're not driving.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, if you're not driving. Good call.
Now they have those things where there's like a big TV on the dashboard, and I'm like, you'll be driving and you see the person is watching a movie while they're driving, and you're just like, how is this a real thing that is happening, right? Like, no.
You are kidding me. You have not seen somebody watch a movie while they were driving.
I can't say that they were looking at the screen, but there was definitely a movie playing on that big screen.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay. Don't EPP and drive, please. You could be in the passenger seat.
Yes. Anywhere else, you'll be good.
Kathy's saying she came to one of the retreats and she ended up crocheting instead of sewing. So like you don't even have to be in the sewing realm if you just want to come and hang out and have fun. When you receive your package, inside the package will also have a schedule for all the times that we're like scheduled to come together. So usually in the morning we have like a welcome time, and then after lunch there's a like show and tell, or like around 8 o'clock at night we do like a happy hour, just so that there's a little bit of structure, so that if you want to go do stuff and come back when more people will be on, because during the day it's kind of hit or miss whether people are online or not. One of us will always be there because we're the moderators, but if you're trying to talk to other people, if you only want to be on when other people are on, you can just come to the scheduled bits of the weekend.
Yes.
Oh,
Kathy says her sister was driving.
Her sister was driving. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, the last time I sewed a whole applique thing, I was doing like a 6-hour road trip, and I was in the passenger seat and I'm doing like applique the whole time. And the driver was a quilter too, and she was like mad that she didn't get to do any sewing because she was driving. And I offered to drive, but she wouldn't let me drive her car, so I got to sew the whole time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That works. That absolutely works.
I still haven't quilted that top. Anyway,
Is it up there somewhere?
Yeah. The thought I just had was like, where even is that top? Whatever.
The question every quilter asks themselves is that project that I finished so long ago. Where is it? What did I do with that?
I mean, yeah, that was a long. I should look for that thing. It was a really pretty top. I have shelves all the way to the ceiling in this room, so like I end up like staring up at the ceiling, like what even is that?
So then, if someone is brand new to English paper piecing, we talked about the pieces that they will get with their registration.
Yes.
Is there anything else that they need to have to be ready to sew for retreat time?
I would say thread. Everybody needs thread. And you don't have to buy anything fancy. Like you could just use regular Aurifil 50 weight. When you're joining the pieces together, if you do a better job, then you don't see as much thread. And so if you want to hedge against maybe not doing such a beautiful job joining, you can use thinner thread. So like Aurifil's 80 weight, doesn't have to be Aurifil. It just, that's what we sold was Aurifil. So everything I have is Aurifil. So this is cotton thread that is finer than the 50 weight thread. So that way, what is that noise?
Oh, I think it might have been a car going by. Did you hear that from my end? Yeah.
I originally thought it was my dog growling, and I was like what?
No, it was a car growling.
A car growling. Sorry about that. Like if you have pets, you're always like hyper aware of noises, right? If like the wrong noise happens, you just like go running, right? Anyway, what I was saying is you will need some thread and a needle. We are going to teach both. Well, actually, we're going to teach 3 methods of basting. This sort of thread basting, where you sew through the paper. And then there's a thread basting technique where you don't sew through the paper, which I'm pretty sure is what I did with these. Nope, those are sewn through the paper too. I don't have a picture to show you. And option 3 is glue basting, which actually what I mostly do. So glue stick. This is one of the optional add-on items too. So if you don't already own you don't need this. You could just use like an Elmer's glue stick, but they're so thick, so that can be a little annoying, especially if you're doing like a small piece. What's nice about these that are meant for quilting is this is a much smaller surface area. So like this is like half the size of a small Elmer's glue stick. So you can do a small amount of glue. In general, if you're glue basting, the more glue you put in, the harder it is to take the thing out later. The least fun step of EPP is pulling out those papers after you're done joining the pieces together, right? So if you like super duper glue them on, peeling them out is annoying because they're really, really in there, right? So using less glue is better.
My favorite tip for controlling your glue use is to put your glue stick in the freezer.
Oh, so that less comes off?
less comes off. It's really helpful for any kind of glue stick. I use it for my glue, my little quilting glue. If you're using the Elmer's glue stick, especially, put it
Yeah.
in the freezer, especially in like warm weather in the summer. It just makes it a little less gloopy, which
That's
is
a great
exactly what you want.
Yeah, I never heard that tip before. That's a great idea. Yeah, so you'll need a needle, you'll need thread. If you're gonna try glue basing, you'll need glue. That's basically it. It's like very portable, very easy to just pick up. Usually when I'm doing an EPP project, I will pack everything for it together, and then that way I can just grab the thing and go, right? So like, yeah, the extra papers are in the back underneath here. Do not ask me why it's a Tupperware instead of like a more quilty container. I guess that day this is what I found.
Who says that's not quilty? We use what we got.
Like I should transfer it because I have all these nice packets. You know, like I buy all these things and then I use them Tupperware instead.
That's funny. And I mean, if you're looking at, so this is the template for the jewel that I was using. This is probably the biggest piece of fabric that's on here.
Yeah.
So you can tell you don't need huge amounts of fabric,
That's
yeah, just enough to get around there. You can see here that this has a seam allowance on it. Can we go to the overhead real quick? Maybe that'll help a little bit. And so there we go. So as we're looking at this, you can see these little dots here. That's where it indicates where the, I guess, the business part of your paper piece is going to be. And then over here is your seam allowance. So not a whole ton.
A hole in it? That's what those dots are?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. The ones from from English Paper Piecing don't have a hole. They're just solid.
You know, there are so many different kinds of these templates. So you can see Yvette, which is a complete solid piece of acrylic. You can see this one that has little dots. There's also the kind with a frame, and we carry those as well, where this whole middle part is cut out. So you have a complete window.
Yep. Yeah.
And I don't have any of those handy, but
I don't either.
The whole point of this is not a whole ton of fabric is used here. So it's a great way to use up your scraps. It's a great way to find, if you have like this weird shaped piece of fabric, you know, you'll know exactly how much you need for your piece.
Yeah. And depending, so if you start doing fussy cutting, which is a more advanced version of EPP, you definitely can do EPP without ever fussy cutting anything. But the thing you end up with if you fussy cut for EPP is sort of like a Swiss cheese leftover bit of fabric, because you cut out like this shape out of here and this shape out of here and this. So then the big challenge I always try to do is like, what else can I cut out of this remainder Swiss cheese piece, right? Where else can I cut out of this so that I don't end up with just like half a yard of fabric that's unusable because it's full of. Yeah, so that's real. If it's not the most efficient use of fabric, we can admit that, you know, but you get that cool effect, so yeah, it's worth it.
Yes, indeed. I would say it was when you were holding up your cog. It's very cool, very compelling. And that's part of the reason why we do it, right? Is to do cool stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you have a pattern that like radiates like that, you can do so much interesting stuff by kind of like studying your fabric and just look at one little section of that piece of fabric. And then, you know, like when I was making these, pretend this is a piece from this, which it isn't, this is some other piece. But what I would do is when I got to the next one, I would go, I think I want the next one to be blue. And I'd go over to my stash and I would literally just pull out blue fabrics and then stick the template on top and be like, is this something? Is this something? And then I had like a pile of blue fabrics and I was like auditioning, what if I fussy cut it this way? What if I fussy cut it this way? Right? It was like, I went crazy with this project. I fussy cut almost everything. Although in general, if you're going to fussy cut, you do want a little bit of negative space, right? So like this is not fussy cut, this text one, right? This is just negative space. And like all this gray back here is just negative space. Because if you, like there's a lot going on in this cog. And if I added even more, like if pretend all of these pointy guys were also fussy cut, it would be hard to see what's happening.
Yeah.
Do you want to kind of like balance the? I think maybe this is already too much fussy cutting. Like this is pushing it on the fussy cutting.
Really, I think it's lovely. I think it is quite balanced. It's gorgeous. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, maybe this could have been a little bit printy or something. You know? But I also really like this. This is actually what started this whole cog. This is an Anna Maria Horner fabric. And do not ask me what it actually looked like originally. I think it might have been a chevron, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
But once I figured out I could do this, I like lost my mind. I was like, I have to make this. You know?
Absolutely. So then what will that be when it's all done? Is it a quilt or a pillow or to be determined?
I mean, I can show you the other parts of it there. Started. Yeah, so like everyone who's watching who's already seen me on these videos knows that I don't really finish anything. I just start a lot of things. So
I think that's the most fun part is starting.
Well, okay. My favorite step is buying fabric.
Okay.
My second favorite step is quilting. And unfortunately, there's like a lot of steps in between those two, you know?
There are. Yeah.
So yeah, I started a lot of other centers for this.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, this is from when Cotton and Steel first came out. So there's a lot of like original Cotton and Steel in here. So this is one of the partial cogs is what they call it in that project. So you
wow.
It doesn't go all the way around. There's like a piece missing. And that's because this fits here.
Gotcha.
Although it's very hard to explain this in them because I pulled out most of the papers in the middle. Here's a tip that will be in the videos. Once you have a lot of pieces sewn together, when you're trying to sew more pieces on, it's a lot easier if you pull out the center pieces because then it's squishy, right? So you can line up and like fold and align the pieces that need to be folded together. If you had kept all those pieces in, like for example, this has all the pieces in it, look how much harder it is for me to fold, right? Like the paper is going to fight you. So as you're going, you want to pull your pieces out. Plus, you don't have to pull them all out at the end and be like insanely bored for a week.
Yep.
So yeah, this partial cog, this fits here.
Oh, very cool. Fits in there.
Yeah.
Well, that's another good point, right? Is as you're making these big pieces, pull out the papers in the middle, and then you can reuse them. So if you're making an entire quilt or an entire project, you don't need to buy 5,000 of the paper pieces all at one time. You're making it in a section, take it out, reuse it. So really, this is good for the environment too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and usually they come in packs. So like this is a standard paper pieces calls them a small pack. It's got 100 hexagons. So most of the time, if you're starting a new project, unless you buy a kit, you can definitely buy kits where you have like every piece that you need for the project. But if you're just picking up random packs, which, you know, I would not know anything about, they will come with some number of hexagons in it, and you can and should reuse them. Like if they're not one-time use, throw them out. You just finish using it, pull it out, put it in a stack, and use it again later. Eventually, they get a little too bent, and they don't make a nice shape anymore, and then you toss them after that. If you don't sew through them, they last way longer.
That's a good point.
Because I used to always sew through them, and then I was going through them much faster. And once I learned I didn't have to sew through them, they lasted a lot longer.
I love Kathy's comment. The club. Learn a lot, but never finish. It's a good club. I think you're in good company.
So Andrea and I today were having a conversation about how my style of like ADD is that if I'm not learning anything anymore, then I'm not interested. So it needs to be like hard enough that I'm still learning, right? Yeah. Which explains why I never want to make a quilt where I have to make the same block 24 times, right? I make it like 2-3 times. I'm like, I get it. I don't need to do that again for 24 more times, right?
You got it down, right? You're done.
Like, I get it. I understood. I'm going to put the QR code up one more time. You can either scan this code to go to our website, well, Allison's website now, and register for the retreat, or you can click the link in the description at the bottom. We have about a dozen people signed up already. So considering it's not until September, I think we're going to end up with, I don't know, 30 people maybe. One time
I think we're going to have a really good group of people.
45 one time, and that was the most we had.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the more the merrier, because not everyone's going to be on all the time, right? So it's not like if you imagine 45 people in a room all talking at the same time, probably most of us wouldn't want to go to that. But that's not how it is. Everyone won't be online all the time. And not everyone talks all the time either. Like a lot of people come and don't talk at all. They just watch and
that's cool
and listen, you know.
Yes, indeed. And I think it'll be like a really good I really appreciate you and Andrea agreeing to host this retreat with me. Yeah.
Yeah. We're in that transition phase, you know.
We are.
Getting to know you, and they all love you just like they loved us, and keep going, you know. I'm so happy that the customers have found somewhere to land with you. So
we are too. We are very happy and pleased, honored to be that place.
Yeah. I think it's gonna
keep the Gotham tradition alive.
Yeah. And like a lot of our customers, the regulars, will like, they know each other from going to classes and going to retreats, and or maybe they're in Stitch Lab or one of Andrea's color classes, right? So like I've heard people tell me like, oh yeah, I reached out to so-and-so, we're both going to register, right? It's like, it's nice.
That is nice. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. Thank you, Yvette, so much for going through the retreat. We're really excited to see all of you there. Yeah, should be a good time.
If you do think of something after we log off, which always happens to me, you can always send us an email. It's info@gothamquilts.com, and one of us will get back to you as soon as possible. And I hope you'll be able to join us.
Indeed.
We'll be back next week at the same time, 6:30 Eastern time on Tuesday night. And we haven't planned what next week's topic is yet. So stay tuned and come log in and find out.
Yes, it'll be good.
See you next week. Thanks for coming. Yeah, press the button. Bye.